the ever-changing weather around the world, ever-diverse terrain and roads across the world. With Kumho Tyre that has conquered all, there is no road you cannot go. Go with Kumho. Kumho Tyre.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hello and welcome to another Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans Thursdays. Scott Rankin behind the microphone yet again, and Brady Baldwin alongside me. Behind the cameras, of course, our usual Dan Yeaman. And yet again, we set sail to Phillip Island, home of one of the widest, most flat open, sweeping... I'll just throw adjectives at it all night, Brady. You better take over before I get too far in.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for the introduction. We're back in Australia here in Victoria, Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit. Fantastic circuit in all of world of motorsport. 4.445 kilometers. That's a bit of a mouthful. Opened in 1956. You see right down the bottom of Victoria near Melbourne. So obviously the home of the Australian MotoGP Grand Prix, and was home of many supercar events, including the Phillip Island 500. These guys tonight, they'll be going out for 250 kilometers, 57 laps around the circuit. As we look at the track map, the famous Doon corner where these guys are doing the highest speed of the whole track. Then you go to Southern Loop, then the long, arduous, hard on the tyres through 3 and 4 Stoner and Miller corner. You go through to Siberia right near the water. If you go too wide, you might end up in it. Then you go through Hayshed and through Lukey, the difficult turn 9 Lukey Heights, down to MG, another very difficult corner. Then round to 11 and 12 onto the Gardner Straight. Scott, we were just talking about this before the race. The first 2 rounds at Magny Cour and Zandvoort, a little bit more difficult to overtake at those circuits. A lot of mistakes were happening. This track, we should see plenty of overtaking.
Yeah, that's the thing about Phillip Island, isn't it? We all know it. We all know its little tricks, its little kinks, its little bumps, its little upsets, and exactly where to place the car. Drivers are going to be back in a world of comfort, and they're going to be back in where they really want to be. Tonight, 250 kilometers of the 4.445 kilometer layout, 4,445 meters, and critically, the strategy. This is the critical part about this race tonight. We've talked about this over the last couple of races, but there hasn't been a whole huge deal of variance in terms of strategy tonight, Brady. That all changes here.
Yes, certainly. We look at the critical lap number 33. A 57-lap race will definitely be a 2-stop strategy. I definitely don't see a 1-stop unless we have about 1 million safety cars, which I don't think will be the case. So we'll see drivers start to pit around lap 33, 34 until about lap 46 to 47, where I think about 23 to 24 laps on a tank of fuel. So that does open the strategy up quite a bit, having about 12 to 13 laps spread in the last pit stop window. So we'll see some guys pit early, try and get an undercut and try and hang on to the tyres towards the end, and we will see guys run long as fresh tyres for the last 11, 12 laps of this race. So should be pretty interesting, Scott. I'm looking forward to it, and a lot of big names up the front looking to capitalise on some misfortune from the last couple of weeks, and some trying to capitalise on their championship position.
Yeah, I was just about to sit down and say, should we actually talk about the last few weeks? Because John Latham, he wants to put them in the rearview mirror. He never wants to see them again. They're all done, and the most penalised driver by iRacing from the last 2 weeks, John Latham, he's lost a lot of important spots. It's a lot easier here around Phillip Island. There's no real place to go and get yourself a slowdown penalty for cutting the track. There's no real place that you can... Oh, he'd understand the pit lane entry. I'm assuming he's done a few more pit lane entries for this week, but I just get the sneaking suspicion. I wonder how he's going to react if another black flag comes his way by the iRacing process this evening.
I know if I was him, I wouldn't be too happy at all, but lucky for him, he's starting in the best spot possible for tonight's 57-lap race. We will go through the grid very shortly, and John Latham will be the guy off pole position, 127.847, just nips Michael Taliancic off the front row. On for Pursuit Sim Racing, we go to Scotty Gamble, Matt Vandercrane on row number 2. Another impressive effort for Matt Vandercrane, really stepping it up this season. Kenneth Latta finished on the podium last week. He will have ERT's Chad Lewis in alongside him for row number 3. Row number 4 will be Craig Friend, Jeff Thomas. He was impressive at round 1 of Magny Cause, a little bit disappointing last week. He'll be looking to rebound for another solid result, and rounding out the top 10 will be the Taipan Esports pair of Anthony Visma and Jason Spriggs.
Yeah, and then we'll move back to 11th and 12th. Dan Hall and Greg Sharp make up this row. Greg Sharp, late penalty last week, which took him out of contention. Moving one row further back, 13th and 14th, Stewie Hall and Travis Hunt. Good to see Travis back up and in on the fringes of the top 10. Yet again, he's continuing to put those results together. Stephen Kennedy, Dave Kirby off of 14th and 15th. It's going to be a tricky one for Dave Kirby. I think another driver was penalised during the piece last week from Zan Vort. Before we head back, another row to Michael Stewart. Boy, he had a good run going last week and just fell by the wayside. Damien Cairns, a little bit further back. Will we see that alternate strategy from him yet again? And finally, rounding out the top 20, Michael Dumbrell and Chris Miller. Chris Miller had such a strong showing last week. He want to put that car up there again, but it's going to be difficult from this spot.
Row number 11 will feature the 66 of Darren Crosby, the 31, Peter Van der Graen. Then we'll go back to Matty Scholes and Rick Vigor, 23 and P24. Another Vigor on the grid, Chad Vigor, will start P25 along with Tim Nicol in 26th position. Michael Quain, he'll start in position 27. Matty Parker, who's been on for some decent results the last 2 weeks, a little bit of misfortune for him. He will start P number 28, and then Scotty Van Loon and Stephen Banks, they will round out the top 30, as Scott, you'll finish the rest of the grid.
That's it. Stephen Gretsch and Jamie McKnight way deep down within the pack. Made a lot of spaces up last time out, did Jamie McKnight. Will he do so again here tonight? 32nd and 33rd is going to be Robert Crisdale and Halil Cesar. Crisdale had a good showing going again, but another driver that fell by the wayside. Scott McCune, again, finding his way into chaos. We'll see if he can finally get a clean run in alongside of Michael Schroeder. Moving further back is Brenton O'Brien, who I've got picked in my V8 Veteran Super Vets competition alongside of Dino Flavel. I have to keep an eye on the heart monitor here tonight before we get to Rod Hollis and Paul Burns. And finally, off the back row of the grid, it is going to be Troy Sipple. And that Porsche on the left-hand side, the safety car coming from all the way down at the back end of pit lane. Lights are going to be coming on in just a few moments. That's the scrutineering area getting in. Sorry, that's the gate entry area. The scrutineering area way down over the back end of the pit lane. It's a very open complex here. It's going to be a great opportunity for all the drivers. Will the one-handed bandit, who I think won here the last time we were at Phillip Island, one of his only wins on the season, even though he dominated the season, who's got the run to turn number 1? Is going to be Gamble on the inside. Matt van der Kraan has also been a strong showing lately. Gets a reasonable start. Somebody's got a banger in the middle of the pack. About 4 rows deep on the left-hand side. I think he's got a great getaway, but Taliancic has got a banger as well. Latham's just going to barely get ahead of him, and here comes the Taipan Esports drivers down the inside. It's going to be Gamble that gets into 3rd place as well. Van der Kraan's going to sit in there and lose 1 spot on the outside of the southern loop, and they're all going to feed through. Lap 1, turn 1 and 2. Just about clean as they head down to Stoner Corner for the first time tonight. It's John Latham by a country mile at the moment after 2 corners, stretching those toes. Who's going to be brave as they run down into Miller Corner for the first time? Multiple wide, deep through the pack, and here they come, running off again. It's those Taipan Esports cars that seem to have gained the most spots there, Brady.
Seems to be a little bit of a disruption in the back of the field. A few cars off the circuit. One of them is Halal Caesar. He's off the track, missing his rear wing, so might try and pick that up in just a moment. There's still cars. That's unfortunately Scott McCune again. One car right down the back. He must have had a really poor start. Trying to pick up who that is. Is that Chris Miller?
I think it was. Chris Miller was deep in there, but Scotty Van Loon was one of the drivers. It was way off, and McCune's got no steering. That Siberia's just gone straight on. That'll be straight into the pit lane. And I tell you what, there's already been some calls to race control, so that'll keep them busy for the start of tonight's race. Any eyes on what's happened so far, Brady?
Just trying to pick up a few little things. Troy Sipples had an off as well, a little bit of contact at MG. So I was about to say, I'm sure all the drivers would have been glad to get through to turn 1 and 2 after last week, but it all kicked off at Miller Corner, turn number 4. For the leaders, though, they're all clean. John Latham currently has the lead of the race over Talientrich and Gamble. Spotted Ken Ladder had a bit of a slow start off the line there. Luckily to get the second go away, pretty good there for the 269. So he was able to actually make a spot as we have a car in the pit lane.
It'd have to be McCune in the pit lane because we saw how bad he was. And somebody up ahead of him is Dean Flavel, actually. That's on the way to pit lane, and he's already served his stop and on the way back out again. McCune will just arrive in the pit lane entry here in a few moments. It's just part of the pit lane entry. There he is, arriving in the shot now. So that sorts us there from lap number 1, and the field's starting to settle their way in as they halfway through lap number 2 already. The run up to MG across Lukey Heights, and positions gained on the start. It was a good lap 1 for Schroeder and Brentslo's run to the rear of the field. Jamie McKnight has been pipped by 3 drivers with 9 positions gained.
I was going to touch on Matty Parker. I did notice he's already gained 7 spots in the 199 machine. So impressive stuff for him. He's up to P21 as well. So really good work for Nova Sim Sports driver. And Rod Hollis, he's picked up a few spots as well. There's 3 guys there, 9 spots. So very impressive opening lap, trying to stay out of the carnage early on. One thing we didn't touch on early in the race, if you're pretty much anyone but John Latham, you were able to save a little bit of fuel in the draft, which is pretty big, down Garden Straight into turn 1, and also between Southern Loop turn 2 and Middle Corner turn 4. So pretty much anyone but John Latham should be able to save a little bit of fuel, which will prove, I think, pretty key in the later stages of this race.
Actually managed to go a chat with Peter Vanderkraan through the middle of the week. Not Matt Vanderkraan, who's lurking beneath the waters down there at 5th at the moment. And he said, we're just waiting for him to eke his way out to the podium. We know it's coming. He's feeling confident. His confidence is quite high. The big thing they said is he is targeting Indy Road Course in a couple of weeks' time. That's his big target for Matty Vanderkraan. That's where he feels strongest. That's where he thinks he's going to get on the podium. And we'll have to keep an eye on it. He's been working there. He's had some really good runs. And the key for me has been his ability to hang on to both fuel and tyres. And with tonight's race, that absolutely is going to play into his favour. And another driver that played into their favour last time was Michael Talientrich, who I believe ran the complete alternate strategy to a whole bunch of drivers. Had one of his teammates sitting on board giving him the calls on the strategy. That appeared to be the difference between him and the So keep your eyes on Talientrich. I expect some saving.
Yeah, I don't have the best memory, Scott, but I do remember vaguely that Tally did run a pretty wild strategy. We all thought that it was not the right one at the time, but he all proved us wrong, and I'm pretty sure he blitzed the field last time we were here last season when we were on the call. So maybe he might prove us wrong again tonight. But it'll all come down to if safety cars come at all. Throw a spanner in the works, especially if they come probably lap 15 or so when guys can maybe pit and be able to take one more stop. So it'll be interesting to see if safety cars play any effect in this race.
Yeah, and remember, ladies and gentlemen, that fuel window is going to be absolutely crucial here tonight. Two-stopper is what we've got in store for you as well. So lead battle pack is just about staying all glued together. Melissa's there as well. There's my friend Paul and Sharp. Greg Sharp making his first appearance in the top 10 this season. Wasn't a great showing from him last time out from Zandvoort Park, it had to be said, and picked himself up a penalty late onto the piece, which really did not help his case. He's had a really good start here from this one. Sipple's deep in the pack there as well. Chris Miller, again, what a showing from him last week. He's going to really put the head down, get forwards this time. Keeping our eyes on Damien Cairns as well. So Cairns, for me, I think is going to be one of the bigger ones because he's always throwing the wild card in there in terms of strategies. Although we haven't seen it yet this year, but races haven't favoured that so far. This season, sorry.
Yeah, I certainly think that Cairns will either be the guy to go as early as possible or as late as possible. I don't think he'll do anything in between of any form that he did last season. betrays that. As I didn't just watch David Gaines, he got a nice move down the inside for P number 19 over Michael Dumbrell. So really good move there. And just seen from race control, unfortunately, Rick and Chad Vigor have been served drive-through penalties for, I assume, the action at turn 4 on lap 1. Looks like we might try and pick up a replay of that first lap incident at turn 4 if we can, as we stay on Latham and Talianch's battle for the race lead at the moment.
Talianch's, of course, is the fastest lap so far. Moving a lot further into it. Something I did want to ask you as well before the race, Brady. This first stint is going to be probably your highest tyre wear stint. Correct me if I'm wrong. Once that rubber gets laid down, the tyres will hang on a little bit better. So I'm assuming you might come a little bit earlier, not only for the undercut, because the tyres are going to fall off as bad as the race progresses.
Yeah, 100% right, Scott. This first part of the race will be the most difficult for the drivers, and so you only get a little bit easier. And obviously, in the last stint, you'll be on the lowest fuel and to fresher tyres if you do run long through that second stint. So this will be the hardest one. This is where you'll probably save the most fuel as well and probably make your race in this first stint. So very important. Top probably 4 have stuck pretty close together, under a second between them. And looks like Kenny Lowe's just pulled away just a little bit from Matt Vanderkraan, but man, pretty much all the way through, between the top 30 is only 20 seconds, so there's really nothing in it at all. When we do look at the weather, it's a nice, pretty typical Phillip Island day, 18 degrees air temp. It's pretty warm actually for there, to be honest, and 21 track temp, so I don't think they'll really change too much as it's static weather and static time throughout this event.
Yeah, so I was actually expecting maybe we might be able to sneak our way into a little bit of a change, but already starting to see here, Brady, again, brake clocking with 6 laps in. That's going to be critical. We saw the big note of last season's race from about this 300-kilometre blockbuster that was the Enduro that we saw nearly 2 hours, where it was action to action to action, wall to wall, got right the way through. One of the big things that was about that was the constant little micro locking. And we got to speak to the drivers after that round, and they said that was the big factor in terms of tyre wear. It wasn't necessarily just driving the car; it was the locking at a heat, temperature into these things. So locking brakes early on, that's going to be a long stint for these guys.
100%, and the casual VM1 and over, this is a fixed setup series as well, so you can change the brake bias throughout your stint, but the car setup plays a lot of factors as well as to how much load each tyre has at any given time. So each driver's got to adapt to this setup. I'm sure they've been doing many laps during the week. I keep tabs on the V8 Veterans Discord, and a lot of these guys doing many laps during the week. So hopefully these guys have adapted to this setup throughout the week and try and minimise the mistakes, because we've seen them play out all season long. We've seen Latham, Gamble, all these top guys been making small mistakes and been costing them massively. So hopefully tonight, for their sake, no mistakes come out, and so far so good. 6 laps in, we're having a pretty good race up front.
So hopefully we're settled on in. And remember as well, ladies and gentlemen, even though the setups are fixed in, the drivers are getting those out there. Many laps as they want. They can figure out, if I tweak the brake bias here and then I go and run 20 laps, what happens to the tyres? That is the secret to success. It's all in volume of laps and things that you try. Get brave with yourself. Do something silly. Sometimes you might just surprise yourself. Well, the leaders at the moment, all tied in, and that was a wiggle for Scott Gamble, which says to me he's a little unsettled. He's not completely confident with the setup as it stands right now, so that could be a critical factor that we might just need to keep our eyes on as this race progresses, is who is struggling for traction. And Leighton had a little bit of an on-edge moment on the exit of the last corner as well, so another driver struggling a little bit for feel, and Talianchich got brave there, got a little bit closer, wanted to show the nose. I get the feeling, again Brady will say it, he's one of the masters of the strategy, does not want to lead, understands he can overtake here, he's comfortable to just sit and ride.
100%, and we only got 50 laps remaining in this race, so it's a long way to go. They're only about a third of the way through the opening stint, so I think Talianchich, he's done enough of these races, he's experienced enough, and he's just going to sit behind Latham, save a little bit of fuel, gambling ladder in tow as well. So unfortunately for John Latham, he'll be the one most disadvantaged as Talianchich poked the nose down the inside at Siberia, not quite close enough. I think the smart thing would be to sit by and save a little bit of fuel, save your tyres as well, maybe push at the end of the stint, where you can gain a little bit of time before the first round of pit stops.
Yeah, that's it. So who is going to be brave? Who's going long? Who's coming short? That's what the first thing of all of these races is all about, settling up. Field sort of stabilised, settled down and out a little bit at this point in time. I want to start looking a little bit deeper in the pack if we can. I think down in and around P7 on backwards. So that's Anthony Visma. And he would be hoping that we don't remember what happened to him last week. I think Anthony Visma, from the races that we've seen between you and I so far, Visma, for me, has DNF'd for most of them. Now, I'm pulling that fact out of nowhere because it feels right. The amount of times I've seen that car sitting in a garage waiting for the end of the race to tick over while supporting his teammates, that is something. Visma's got the pace. We've seen him at the front. We've seen him win races. Now I want to see him convert into a championship staple.
I think that statement has a little bit of credibility, Scott. I'm not going to doubt you. I have seen Visma, like you said, run up the front, but he seems to either make those small mistakes or unfortunately get caught up in other people's incidents at times and probably be a little bit unlucky as well. So currently running P7. He's a little bit off the lead, 3.6 seconds as we see on screen. So it's not a bad thing. He's not really that far off at all. So Michael Quain, he's pulling into race control. So maybe a problem for the 7.
Oh, hang on. He's stuck. He's stuck on pit straight. On pit straight, which has triggered the first safety car of the night. This is an odd one, as the whole field is going to immediately have to check itself up. We're on the window. We are right on the cusp of the fuel window for the two-stopper opening right now. This is a tricky one. Talianchis is in. John Latham stayed out. He's gone for track position. Who else is coming?
Everyone.
Everyone but Latham. Latham's going to be isolated here. He's made an absolute make-or-break decision, and you don't want to be the first car in this instance. And John Latham's proving why.
He's nearly done the opposite of what Talianchis did last time, where I'm pretty sure Talianchis was the only one to pit really early out of everyone, and it worked out for him. This time, Latham's just stayed out, and everyone's pitted in. Will he regret that decision? I'm not too sure, but...
Is there a single car? There's not a single car! He's the only one. This is like watching Lewis Hamilton on the grid on his own at Hungaroring. That is the momentum. That is what has happened here. And again, John Latham at pit lane, or rather being not forced to hold in pit lane an extended period of time this time by, is going to play itself into the mix. This is ridiculous. I've never seen a one-person stays out strategy. Never seen this, Brady.
The worst thing for John Latham, as he was the leader, and Talianchis didn't pull off to the very last minute. He didn't want to show his card, so unfortunately for Latham, being the leader at that very point in time was probably not a blessing, the opposite of a blessing. So I think Latham's honestly going to get caught with his pants down here a little bit, and I think he's going to get absolutely swallowed up. These guys have 10 lap fresher tyres than him. He's just going to lose so much track position. He's still going to do 2 pit stops. These guys can save a little bit of fuel. They might even pass him. They might just save fuel this whole stint, do 1 stop, and they'll clear him anyway. So big moment in this race. We were talking earlier, John Latham really wants a result after 2 heartbreak weeks, and man, it's going to be heartbreak for 3 weeks in a row, I think.
Is this one of those things where you're just so focused on trying to be clean, trying to be concise, and executing that you lose focus of the bigger picture? Because Latham, and the worst part is, if he pits now, he goes to the back. You don't gain any. It's not like he's going to be 10th, 15th when he pits here, as the Logitech G replay will tell us the story of what's causing this. That's a blown engine. That is a blown engine because he's already going incredibly slow. The damage is already there. So this is already on Michael Quain, and we were looking at Quain to be one of the head cars in terms of strategy gamesmanship. Yep, there goes the engine. Pop. But that damage, where is that damage come from?
I would assume that's probably come from the lap 1 incident, and unfortunately it's only probably a matter of time for that engine to blow. If he gets pretty significant contact on the front of these cars. It's unfortunately only a matter of time. I've done it myself once or twice, unfortunately. So, unfortunately, yeah, like I said, if you get heaps of damage on the front end in these cars, it's a matter of time before they pop. But a few things to note from the pit stops. Latta, he's jumped from, I think he was running 4th. He's now up to 3rd. Gamble, he's dropped a few spots through the pit stops as well. So maybe he didn't save as much fuel as we thought. So a few jumbles up and down the top 10. Visma's jumped a few spots as well. So interesting to note as we do go to the left to the replay of that lap when this is splitting a loop. Massive amount of get back there. That's why he was so far behind. Really picked up the action at Miller Corner, Scott.
It's he'll be going alright. Whoa! He's got checked at stage left. My word, he got flung out of there at a high rate of knots. So we're looking for Quain in the middle of this, and somebody's gone down the inside, tag Skulls. I think Quain's had nowhere to go and just run straight into Skulls. Or is in that back.
Oh.
Whoa, my word!
What was that? That was a loose car. Wow. So, it's Chad Vigor, so that probably explains his penalty, but why was he going that direction, Scott? So he's done a flick spin. Oh, yeah, that's a bit of an awkward moment there, Scott. Probably maybe a little bit silly, probably the reason for the penalty. Probably would have been a bit safer just to stop where you were and wait for the field to go past, but probably a first. I don't think I've seen that before.
Yep. Oh, you can't. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. It's best in these moments not to dwell on that too much. The thing that I was interested in looking at was during those replays was the safety car. As soon as it came out, pulled over to Michael Quain to say safety car. Sorry to say, unfortunately. That was lap 1. That was now a long way in the distance. Safety car is actually pulling away at this point in time. So we're going to restart this lap. And John Latham. You got a feel for him? You got a feel for him. Now he's got to drive through it. He's got to keep his head up. He's got to recognize what's available to him. And he is on the verge of being destroyed through strategy. Even if there's another safety car here, Brady, the difficulty is he's got such a huge fuel load to drop. He needs this to go as green as far as it possibly can and hope that a couple of drivers that are in behind him can't make the end of the race as well is about all that's on the plate for him now. As the safety car will enter pit lane, he's not going to wait. He is going very, very early from John Latham. Going to look to try and disappear into the sunset as best as he possibly can. That's the best that he can do. He'll have a lower fuel load than everyone else around him, so there is still an opportunity.
I really think he needs about 2 safety cars to try and save enough to get enough fuel to try and get to lap 33, essentially. That's what he needs to do to have any inch of hope to try and stay up front. He'll need a lot of luck to try and stay up the front.
Man, he got a huge launch. He was nearly 7/10 of a second out clear, and Taliancic through one corner deleted that margin. Taliancic has now got an opportunity. He is going to get on that loud pedal and get down the inside. Is Latham going to cover it? I get the feeling he is. He's going to need to fight this tooth and nail. Taliancic shows the nose to the inside. He's going to get the nose there at the turn-in point at Miller. Gets the nose down the inside, and Taliancic leads the race. In the meantime, in behind these guys, Chad Lewis and Ken Latta have gone toe-to-toe. They've made contact. Gamble's dropped spots in the pit lane, and Lewis is starting to get aggressive in and amongst these guys. He's gone real aggressive. He's now into 3rd place as Ken Latta has finally managed to get that one back off of him. Now it's going to be Latta and Gamble that go side by side through the Haitian. The run to Lukey Heights. And it's going to be Scott Gamble that comes out ahead of it over Chad Lewis. Finally, my word. And Van Loon is off the circuit again. He just can't make a start this time from Scotty Van Loon. One Scott full of talents, one Scott here in the commentary box, and one at the tail end of the field. We've just about got this whole thing bookmarked.
Yeah, look, bit of witness marks on the right side door of Ken Latta, so him, Lewis and Gamble were really going out off that start, and I was going to mention there's no point Michael Taliancic waiting around. I'm sure he knows that John Latham is now not in his race whatsoever. He's pretty much out of it at this stage. So Taliancic really has just got a bolt. He's racing Ken Ladder, Gamble, Lewis, and Visma in behind. So I think this is really good for Taliancic because he's got a car in between him and Ladder at the moment.
And the thing that I was concerned about, the critical thing for me from Latham would have made me absolutely come to the pit stop if I was in his shoes, is that I've seen him wiggling the rear end of that car. I would have wanted to discard those rear tyres, get something else on. Ladder's now got control of this second pack, and this is allowing Taliancic and Latham to stretch their legs together. Taliancic was super quick this time through last lap, through the second and third sectors, basically everywhere but the southern loop. And hasn't managed to extend it all that far out ahead of John Latham this time. It's running relatively even, so maybe Latham might actually just be able to go to it. Maybe the advantage was down in turn 1 and 2. And Latham continues to extend because I tell you what, this isn't the battle that we're really interested in. We want to keep our eyes a few spots further back. Ken Ladder and Scott Gamble are absolutely going toe-to-toe. They have traded paints multiple times. Multiple times. Have a look at those marks on the side of Ken Ladder's car. This battle is going to go on just about race long.
But Gamble got right to the rear bumper at MG, and he's going to come down the inside at Dillon corner. Ladder's just going to concede. Think of the big picture, and he'll go back to fourth. Gamble back up to third after losing a few spots in that first round of pit stop.
Ladder's just about gone off the circuit there at the southern loop. He's going to lose another spot there to Chad Lewis, who sneaks on by. Now the Visma's crumbling all over his rear bumper. What's happened to Van der Kraan in the middle of all of this? He's just disappeared.
Yeah, Matt Van der Kraan down to 9th at the moment. So he was running in the top 5 earlier on the race. So possibly lost some spots during that first round of pit stops, which is unfortunate for him after a fantastic qualifying effort, starting in 4th. So he has to unfortunately do the hard work and try and gain those spots back. But man, Gamble and Ladder, they're going to be going at it all race long. None of these guys want to concede any positions. And Chad Lewis, he took advantage of that little mistake from Ladder at Southern Loop.
Penalty coming through. Redress from Ken Ladder with Chad Lewis. So they've had to swap their positions back, which is why Lewis is giving that one away to Gamble. And Lewis is in 4th still, so it's not huge. It was going to be Chad Lewis that lost a ton of time with contact with Ken Ladder, and that's why the redress was called for. That has freed up Gamble to go chasing, and that is not what John Latham wanted to see those guys continue to go toe-to-toe. He stayed with Taliancic, so Taliancic might have been fuel saving just a little bit. He got through, and now he's starting to accelerate away, so a little bit of tyre saving there, a little bit of fuel saving in the early parts. We've got to keep our eyes on what the lap times look like on the completion of this lap, because this is where Scott Gamble is finally going to be released to go down after these guys. We'll see if he has an impact on that margin to John Latham.
We really will see the true pace of the 5.43 of Gamble to see if he is able to run down Taliancic. It's going to be really down to them two at the end of the race, I think. And then Lewis, Ladder and Visma, I think those guys will be fighting out for the last spot of the podium. Anyone really could be in touch, and Dan Hall, he's gained a few spots from the start as well. He looks pretty pacey. A winner from last season, he's up to 8th. So still a lot of guys in the mix here for the final step of the podium, but I think it'll be down to Taliancic and Gamble once all the strategy plays out at the end of the race. So we'll see if Tally does anything special strategy-wise, but he looks pretty comfortably out in front and setting a really good pace.
So we just have to keep our eyes up and down the field at this point in time. We've got to keep our eyes on Van der Kraan. I went back, had a look. Very, very slow, very poor off of the lane exit. He lost about 4 or 5 spots. What I think to do with when so much further forward ahead. Van der Kraan got stuck with that pit lane later on, probably a second or two longer than he wanted, and that was all she wrote. In the meantime, up and down the field, probably time to check in with who's gained the most spots, because we've had chaos. There's probably a number of drivers that have lost a ton of spots as well. Jim Wright back to the top of that leaderboard. That's where he should be. Michael Schroeder and Rob Hollis all at 10. Matty Parker at 9. A lot of big movers this race, Brady. We haven't seen it the last couple of weeks. We've talked about the inability of the track selection for us to really go back to how crafty that's forced people to be. But this time out at Phillip Island, these guys know how to exploit all the limits up and around the edges of this track and really get the job done.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all, Scott. And just seen Jamie McKnight, he's trying to put another move on Peter Vanderkraan for another spot, and it's been pretty typical of Jamie McKnight to either start from the pit lane or be a little bit off in qualifying and be able to charge through the field. So the 027 Synergy Sim Racing car, he's always been able to pass cars, and he's got another one done side by side with the 31 of Peter Vanderkraan. It looks like he's clear now, and even behind Michael Dumbrell, he might fancy himself down the inside of MG. This might be close. Dumbrell down the inside of Peter Vanderkraan, and looks like they'll run side by side through turn number 11, and Peter Vanderkraan will slip just in front on the exit, but Dumbrell will have that slipstream down the front straight, so might keep an eye on the 055 of Michael Dumbrell as we head into turn 1. He might get the move done, might stick the nose in.
He is super close up to that rear bumper as well. He's looking real pacey. Is Michael Dumbrell. Opportunity's going to work in the water here for him. Not quite close enough at turn number 1, but might be Miller Corner off of the southern loop. He will be looking for his drive and his traction. Just wants to stay in touch here. Get it all the way down here. Get it rotated nicely at the crest of the hill at the southern loop. Get the power down. Bleed onto that throttle. Not too much. Don't want the rear end to fire around. Don't want to end up out in the weeds. And that's the run down to turn number 4. See how things go. No, he's still not quite close enough for Dumbrell. So his tyres might be starting to fade on the 055. Look at how good he is on the brakes here. Right into the middle of the corner, and just ahead of him, Vanderkraan starting to struggle with those rear tyres. Remember, we pit here about 7 or 8 laps ago, so not a huge amount of tyres on these ones. Dumbrell with a wiggle as well. So driver's going to be forced to manage rear tyres this whole race long. Is what's just watching a little bit of car behaviour's told me. Accident down at turn number 4 at Miller Corner as well at this point in time. Somebody's going backwards, and was in 36 at the start of the lap, and that will be...
It's got McKeon. We'll pick that up on the Logitech G replay, and I think the 77 was involved. Scott McHugh. Check out, we're on board with Rick Vigor, the 014 machine, coming up to Miller Corner, and McHugh there down the inside of Rick Vigor, and contact is made. So unfortunately Scott McHugh got into Rick Vigor there, and just a little locked brake coming into turn number 4 there, and simple little error, and unfortunately Scott McHugh can't get to brake, and yeah, it looks like he locked the rear Scott and just got in the back of Rick Vigor there. So not sure if he looks like he has slowed down to redress that position, so I don't think there'll be any further penalty for that incident.
Yep, so we'll keep our eyes on in the meantime, up and down the field as well, Latham's managed to stay with Talyancic, and I can tell you he's actually taken a small chunk out of him this lap, so it might have been a mistake in turn number 2 for Talyancic on this lap. But Gamble and Latham have been matching lap times just about the last few laps, so not really quite able to close the margin at this point in time with Scott Gamble, and that'll be largely in part due to some drafting as cars go side by side. Will be Rod Hollis who ends up backing out of that one. I think that'll be Stephen Banks who's just ahead of him, so smart decision making there. Banks will get the position back, and on the run down to MG. Let's get a little bit of a moment there as well. So again, the deeper that we get into this run, I'm starting to think that those rear tyres, they're going to be the concern. So that says to me, I think rate-wise is a little bit further forward tonight, Greg.
Yeah, I think you would be right in saying that. It looks like a few guys struggling on the rear tyre early in this race. These guys have only about done 8 racing laps on these tyres, so pretty early to be seeing tyre wear, but obviously might be in the setup. Not too sure.
Here we go.
Big lunge from Dan Hall.
Big lunge from Dan Hall. Let's see if he can get it pulled up. Does get it pulled up, but loses the spot straight back. And whoever that was that let him back on through, it might have been Bisma. Indeed, it was Bisma who just gave him the space to lock up and run wide and said, yep, I'll just sit back up inside. That, ladies and gentlemen, is racecraft and awareness. You hear lock brakes, the one thing you do not want to do is force to go side by side in the corner with you. Just going to punch straight off.
Yeah, look at this battle pack for 4th on screen. 4th through to 12th. There's literally nothing in it whatsoever. I did say earlier on, battling for the last spot of the podium, which effectively this is for if you take John Latham out of the equation. This is the battle for third, effectively. It's absolutely crazy, Scott, how close all these guys are. This is going to be an absolutely intense battle in the following laps.
Yeah, so looking further down the field as well, we've got to keep an eye on Chris Miller, I think. Oh, hang on, no we can't, because the guys are weaving, so there's two trains of cars making their way down pit straight at this point in time. So 4th to 12th, 13th to 20th is the other one. So tons of cars wrapped up in these battle packs, and they're all relatively even. The field spread tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is actually really, really minor. Normally by this point, we've got cars just about dotting the entire track. I can tell you, it's only about 2/3 of the track. It's a lot less than we've seen over recent weeks, and shorter lap time as well. That is a phenomenal thing to see. That says the few condensers when it comes here to Phillip Island, when the drivers are in their element in a track that they know. The margins between these drivers are next to nothing whatsoever. So who's got the pace? Who's going to be able to put it all together this time by? Who's going to be able to grab themselves a position? Dave Kirby's the lead car in this battle pack at the moment. And right now, he's got Travis Hunt in his rearview mirror and the eyes on that thing. I think Dave Kirby's just about sick of seeing him. He might just let him go just to get rid of him.
Actually, one of your points earlier, Scott, you said how condensed the field is, and I think it is due to Phillip Island. Obviously, similar to Bathurst, guys have done so many laps around this track. The last 2 weeks been a magnet called NZ Inboard. It's been a bit of a open book, and not many laps have been done there. Not many races have been done there before, especially in the case of magnet calls. So everyone's so tight, and there's no margin for error. Everyone's so tightly compact in this field. It's going to produce some great racing all night long. So it's really good for us, but we'll probably have no voices by the end of the night.
Yeah, it's going to take wise heads as well. Sometimes caution is indeed, ladies and gentlemen, the better part of valour. We've already seen drivers locking up on the tonight. He's going to be next when he tries to send one down the inside and comes away second best down the inside at this point in time. I think that's Visma, and indeed it is Visma on the inside. You're looking to steal that one away from Ken Latta. They're going to go toe-to-toe. Dan Hall goes with them, looking for the crisscross. Visma's not going to get there. Now he's going to start to fall prey to Dan Hall as he is going to harass the rear bumper of that Holden on the way through the Haitian, the Rubberluki Heights. The other problem is with the fields this close, you send a move, you're going to get sent back on.
100%, and if you make a move and don't complete it like Visma did, it leaves you exposed to the car behind. In this case was Dan Hall. So if you're going to do a move, you've got to make it stick and try and clear the car in front. Otherwise, you're going to be swamped from cars behind. And we're seeing that right now with the type on the rear bumper of the Type N Esports number 6 machine. He's got the ERT 462 off Dan Hall right behind him.
Yeah, and John Latham into pit lane, so he will take that early air quotes penalty. I'm going to stick it in. I'm going to call that one a penalty. It's not really a penalty. John Latham's going to feel it. He's still serving that one at this point in time. In the meantime, though, Chad Lewis has actually gotten away from Ken Latta. I think that's what's caused the urgency from Visma. Looking larger now. Latta 1.5 seconds off Chad Lewis. Where's he going to rejoin? Still not down off the jacks. This is an extended stop. He's got to fill that fuel tank all the way up. Is the problem that he's got?
The only benefit he's going to have later in the race, Scott, is going to have a lot shorter final stop than a lot of these guys. He's going to be having to go to about lap 33, 34, which is the minimum laps, critical lap we talked about earlier in the race. So, and John Latham, yeah, he's pretty well 39th, dead last in the field. So unfortunately it's going to be a long hard night. I think he'll make up some spots at the end with I was just talking about that earlier. He'll have a shorter stop at the end of the race, but he's certainly not going to be anywhere in the realm of battling for a top 3 or 5 or even top 10.
Oh look, I think 15th is probably his target at this point in time. That's about all he can do. Now the benefit he'll have is that he's going to be on fresh rubber here, and he was quite pacey on the old rubber, so opportunity lurking in the wings for John Latham. Opportunity was lurking in the wings at the safety car. He did not take it, so we'll see if we get ourselves another one. In the meantime, back up front, how's this for lap times between our two leaders at this point in time? Michael Taliancic, 29, 5.34. Oh, how close do you think he can get to that one, Brett?
Yeah, certainly very close between these two drivers out in
Check
front.
that out.
So there's nothing between them.
Check that out. Check that out. So 5.35. So I'm looking at a different timing screen. 5.35 for Taliancic. 5.33 for Scott Gamble. How's that for peak pace?
Absolutely nothing in it whatsoever, Scott. And fantastic to see that probably the two top drivers in this series are going to battle out all race long, and I think a little bit of strategy towards the end of this race will play a part. Luckily for Taliancic, he has over a 4-second lead at the moment, so he's able to control the pace out in front whilst continuing to try and push, and then he has a fairly big gap back to Chad Lewis and P3, his teammate, and then the big train following that. Ladder, Visma, Dan Hall, Craig Friend, they're all in this battle still from 4th to about 11th at the road. David Kirby, who was 12th, he's now heading the train that was starting with Travis Hunt. So unfortunately, Kirby dropped off just a little bit in this field, and another track. So 4th to 11th is the train, and then we got from 12th to 19th. So again, these guys super close, and one little mistake's going to hurt you massively.
Yeah. So trains are moving themselves around. 29.379 this time for Taliancic, 29.469. So Gamble just fell off by a tenth that lap over recently. You know, he took 2,007 points. Give a tenth back to Taliancic as he continues to extend that margin out in front. But at this point in time, Chad Lewis has fallen 5 seconds off of these guys as well. So his lap time's starting to fall off a fair bit. Ladder has come back at him. He's only opened 0.4 of a second. Back in towards Chad Lewis, and that'll help now that Visma's not getting aggressive with him anywhere. I can tell you, fastest middle sector of the race so far has just gone the way of John Latham. That's how racy he's getting, and more importantly, he's overtaken one car already. So 2 cars already since leaving pit lane. We're about to make that 3 cars. He is getting on that loud pedal and going forwards.
He has to. He's got to try and make up as many positions as he can. We're talking about maybe a top 15. I reckon it'll be about between 15 and 20 he'll be able to get up to. 49 seconds behind. He's not going to bring that much time up with less fuel at the last stop as he makes a move there in Scott McCune. That's for P36. So ways off where he was before, unfortunately, John Latham. But he's got enough speed to try and bridge the gap, but he's got a big gap to the next car in front. It's about 7 to 8 seconds to Dan.
Yeah, so the critical thing is that his pit stop was 13 seconds longer at that first stop. At a 51-second stop, I reckon he's got about another 35-second stop to go. So that's sort of the time period he's got to make up. Is 13, 14 seconds-ish longer than all the guys that hit underneath that safety car. So you take that out of 35 seconds, so he's got 21 seconds extra that he's got to make up, plus the time it takes him to get from entry pit road to exit the pit road. That's what he's looking for. So that's quite an we're looking at 30 to 40 seconds, somewhere in that range, is what he's now got to make up in terms of pace out on the track. Making that up to 15, doable. Making that up inside the top 10, and it's going to have to be a race and a half.
In short, he's got a lot of ground to make up, Scott. I think we can agree on that, unfortunately for Latham, but it will be a true test of the driver that he is and how much pace he truly has. He's doing some pretty decent lap times, but really he is on a lot fresher tyres than the guys out in front. So we'll see how he goes. We'll have to check back in after the second round of stops and when he takes his final stop as well and see where he ends up.
Right, so 110's just called in something at the moment with Paul Burns. And he's saying this lap, turn 3 or 4 something. He's saying something just happened at the hairpin. So, and it was Brenton O'Brien that he's had contact with at the hairpin on this lap. So this will probably trigger some sort of investigation from race control. That margin from Chad Lewis back to Ken Ladder at this point in time is starting to close. But I can tell you Paul Burns has lost 2 spots on this lap. So that's what he will probably be complaining about. Let's see if it's still damage on the car. It's a very good car as well. So we'll go ahead and jump to the Logitech G replay. Find out. Brady, what have you got for us?
We will pick up Logitech G replay on cue. Thanks to producer Jam Game and Paul Burns or contact down the inside. That was Brenton O'Brien, I'm pretty sure we said. So unfortunately, O'Brien gets into the side there of Paul Burns. Looks like no redress happens, so we'll have to see what race control will do with that. Possibly a redress, since Burns only lost about 4 seconds from that. So I think a redress would probably be the most appropriate penalty for that action.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to see that one again. It's just odd. The angle that we got, Brenton O'Brien's not off track. So, admittedly, there is a car with the apex. It's going to have another look at another angle just to see whether or not he did actually leave enough space for the apex. But remember that when he gets to the apex, Brenton O'Brien's going to have a much narrower angle, so he's going to be a lot slower to get down the inside there. He's got the overlap. That's what we're looking for.
Pretty 50-50 that I think there, Scott. Looks like he might have got up far enough, and Burns might have put the old squeeze on him just a little bit into the corner. So this will be a perfect view off the roof of O'Brien. Is he
not quite?
Is he at the B pillar? I don't think he's quite at the B pillar.
Yeah. Okay, that's a much better angle. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, the benefits of iRacing compared to real life racing. You get onboard cameras, you get chopper cameras, you get camera angles that you just would not theoretically be able to stick a camera in, and that means that our racing controllers will get right down in there and actually review every single thing that's going on in the Kumho Tyres V8 Vets. When they've got the option to review things, that's what they do. They get down in there. They can even get one right on your Kumho tyre on the side of the car there. And get an update. Robert Crisdale straight into the lane. He is not delaying, looking for a little bit of an early stop. This is a deal earlier than the pit window opens. This is not his final stop. He will have to come back to the lane. And that is race leader, Michael Taliani. She's now up to 5.4 seconds. Sorry, 5.8 seconds out in front. So he has, all of a sudden, found an extra gear.
I was going to touch on that quickly, Scott. That last lap they just finished, he pulled 0.4 of a second on Scott Gamble, and the previous lap was about the same. So Talian's is really putting the hammer down at the moment on Scott Gamble and pulling that gap out to nearly 6 seconds. So he's not fuel saving by the looks at the moment, or Scott Gamble's really fuel saving. So good turn of pace for the 21 machines, boding him well for the end of this race.
We'll have to keep an eye on it as we head deeper into the race. But now Gamble's starting to respond, taking some of that time back out. So might have just been a couple little mistakes. Difficult to keep yourself going. 250 kilometres tonight's event of what is effectively a 4.5 kilometre track. And Greg Sharp's just had an issue as well that he's looking for review. So we'll have to keep our eyes and ears out for that one. And he's gone from 18th on the current lap. Contact was made at the southern loop with, looks like, Matty Parker. So we might try and grab another replay. So guys are starting to get antsy, and that tyre wear is starting to run away from us at this point already, as well as fatigue starting to wear itself in. So there's a few little bits and pieces that are making it a little bit more difficult for this next phase of the race.
And we're only about 5 laps, maybe 6 at worst, as we see Matty Parker, massive moment on around the outside of Greg Sharp at turn 1 there, into turn 2. Parker still down the inside. Oh, a bit of contact too. Bit of hip and shoulder there for Parker, so I'll have to see what race controls see about that. I don't really think there's not much in that at all. He does get up far enough. Some would say he might have pushed a little bit wide, so we'll have to see what race control think of that. There was not really that much in it, but as I was just touching on, these guys are only about 5, maybe 6 at very best, laps away from having to pit again. So we'll see a flurry of cars coming to lane, as I said, in the next 5 or so laps.
Yeah, so that just makes me think all of a sudden, is Gamble starting to slow down and just starting to settle himself back in, save some fuel, make sure that he can go as far as he can. Kelly Andrews might have already done all the fuel saving he necessarily needed to. Or if he's not worried about it, he's not worried about the fuel whatsoever. I can tell you, while you're seeing Matty Parker go backwards, there was a redress order from race control. They got in there, they looked at it, and Brady ball was right. He drifted a little bit too far wide at the apex, and that's what the issue hurt me for. He was up far enough, so he's required to have left Racing Room Greg Sharp, and Race Control Hub Team Racing Room was left.
Yeah, I think probably the right call was made there. Matty Puckett didn't really do that much wrong, just pushed a little bit wide there, a little bit tight on the front end inside the loop, and just minor contact. But I mean, you make contact and you make contact to pass someone, it's always not going to go in your favour. So right call there from Race Control once again as Jade Lewis. He's doing a fantastic job, P3 at the moment. One of the guys so far this season and last year as well that showed turns of speed in certain races, but never really put a full race together. And he's showing a lot of pace here tonight. He's pulling away from Ken Latta, who was on the podium last week and a race winner last season. So kudos to the 727. He's showing some really good speed here tonight.
Yeah, all benefit back to Ken Latta. He has taken time out of it. He's got back into that draft now as well, so it's starting to close that margin. His lead trainers sort of stayed together. Matt van der Kraden's up from 9th into 8th after that restart, although it is due to John Latham's pit stop. So we need to keep our eyes further down for Latham and the driver of the 24. Where's he got himself back up to? 33rd. So Rim joined 39th. He's gained 6 spots since then. Still continuing to go forwards. He's taking about a second lap at the moment out of the car ahead of him, which is Dean Flavel. So he will close in on him at a rate of knots. About a second lap on the bulk of the field, all the way up to sort of our top 10, at which point it breaks down to about half a second. So he is definitely making time. It's not a huge deal of time though, and the other thing is he's also going to make overtakes the other cars don't have to make, so that's going to slow him down some. And the Dirty Air is going to get involved here as well.
Just seeing a moment there for the 077 in the background of Stephen Banks. We might try and pick that up on our Logitech G replay if we can. It was at Miller Corner. He's dropped about 5 or 6 positions there in the KFC entry. Century Motorsports, I believe, Stephen Banks at the 077. So unfortunately he's lost some position. Pick it up on cue. Logitech G replay. Drew was at Miller Corner, whether it was on his own or contact. It looks like, yep, just locked a brake and he just lost the rear. So exact opposite of what I was thinking initially, and just done. Yep, Century Motorsports. So I guess correctly, Scott. Look at me go tonight. Yeah, just a little pump myself up a little bit. But yeah, Stephen Banks, unfortunately, that's a little error exiting Miller Corner, and he's dropped from 28th to 33rd because of that mistake.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go. The more that I'm starting to think about it. We've had a few wins this season. We've got a few things right. You've got Central Motorsport. I knew what Central Motorsport's going to play this season, sort of delivery. And I think you did as well. So you short delivery. Yep, that's Central Motorsport. Beautiful. But we've got to find things to get right again. So things we've got right so far this season include strategy calls, safety car calls, what we think is going to happen, the number of safety cars. Matt Scholes has been off the road as well. So that's my teammate. Yeah, you know what? Let's stare at Skulls here a little bit longer. Just a phenomenal driving in the Premier Endurance League over the weekend, and finished up on the podium there. Albeit he said, "I hope you guys weren't watching me whilst I was spinning." Well, Skulls here, we're going to do it again, mate. 2 races in a row that we'll broadcast you, and 2 races in a row we are looking at you whilst you are having a little bit of a pants down moment on stream, brother.
That was a wild moment for Scalzi. Look at that, up on the bit, man on the left. Wow, that's probably why he's in the pits. I think he's got a little bit of damage from that. And with the fast repair, he's probably going to use that. He's going to really have to save at the end of this race to even have a glimpse of making it home. Unfortunately, that's the only problem he's going to have.
Well, I would have said to him as well, if you go 1 or 2 more laps, if you can go 1 or 2 more laps, doesn't matter how slow it is, you'll make it back up. In being inside that pit window. So at this point in time, John Latham's starting to make a few spots. There's a few cars that are starting to come down to the attention of their pit lane crews. Pit window, ladies and gentlemen, is on the verge of opening in the 250 kilometres of the Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans from Phillip Island.
Well, officially opens right now. We said our critical lap was number 33, so
end of this lap it will be open, so that means that Skulls is in, I think he's in too early, 2 laps too early is the problem for Skulls. Talyancic running down off of turn number 2. He's starting to pick his way through back markers. And this is problematic for him now because he's now going to be losing a little bit of time. And indeed, I think he actually pulled out some more margin over Scott Gamble. Would you believe it? Whilst working through back markers. So, can't complain. Got pace in lap cars as well.
Yeah, I don't think we can doubt whatsoever if Talyancic has pace. He proves us wrong time and time again. Last season he was racing with one arm, and look at all the results that he got, wins, podiums, just missed the consistency. And John Latham, he just had a call on the radio saying, is he had a problem? No. On screen, we got Ken Latta and Dan Hall, is it? So they're running side by side through side B. I got a little bit distracted from John Latham. I thought he might have been pulling into race control, but Ken Latta, Dan Hall going side by side once again. These guys are going at it for P number 4 on the road, and Dan Hall has stayed right with Latta throughout this whole stint. And does it look like Latta's closing just a little bit on Chad Lewis as well, Scott?
Yeah. So this battle pack is really starting to close back up. John Latham was just on the radio just to say thank you to Tim Nicol for letting him on through. That's what that one was all about. Have a look at that rear wing wiggling all over the place as these guys try and get their cars down and on the power. Indeed, get their cars down and into pit lane because Chad Lewis has continued on another lap. But just about the rest of the lead cars with that battle pack are going to jump straight down into the pit lane. They're going for the undercut.
They are going the undercut. They'll have to save maybe a little bit more than the guys that are going a little bit longer, but they will have a fresh set of tyres on this outlap to try and make some gains. So the one to watch will be Latta v Chad Lewis will be the main one to watch out of the front battle pack. So we'll see how these guys come out of the pit lane as well. Some might have saved a little bit more fuel than others. So we'll see Jeff Thomas is in the lane, Dan Hall, Stuart Hall's in the lane,
Van der Kraan as well.
Van der Kraan. So many guys in the top 10, 15 are in the lane right now, and on the jacks for quite a while. Dan Hall, he's off the jacks. He's going to jump Ken Latta. So some good saving for Dan Hall in behind Latta in that last stint. I assume he is more ahead of Ken Latta in the field stop. So impressive there for the 462.
Yeah, huge opportunity for Dan Hall as well. So we'll see if he can push it on. And that is the pit lane. Transit time to transit time and time sat in the box. So it is 33.1 and 53.6, 33.1 seconds. That stationary in that box. It is an eternity when you're sitting there. All you can think of is get the thing full, get me out of here as soon as you guys possibly can. That means from a driver's perspective, that is a little bit less of the right foot to get that deep into the sim. Because when you're trying to pump the thing full of gas, all that matters is getting the thing full of gas. Less gas to fill, less time sat.
So Talyancic, Gamble, Lewis, Visma, they're all in the lane. Crosby's gone for another lap, so he's going to be probably best placed out of the league group. He started 21st. I can't quite remember where he was running beforehand, but he's gone on for another lap. So is Peter Van der Kraan. Jamie McKnight's gone for another lap. So a few guys getting an extra lap of field. There's Talyancic. He should be clear out in P1. I assume Gamble will be the next car to come by. John Latham, he's actually past Talyancic, but remember, he has to pit again. So that will be a little bit telling. And Gamble, he comes out of the pits. Lewis, he's been jumped by Jason Spriggs. He's come out of nowhere. Waiting for Ken Latta. Dan Hall flies by. Ken Latta flies by. So the undercut has worked for those guys. But Anthony Visma and Chad Lewis is the big one. He's dropped about 4 or 5 spots in the lane there.
Yeah, that's a huge deal that they've had to deal with. And have a look at John Latham at the moment. Right now, leads the race by just under 2 seconds, but he has to come back to the attention of his pit crew. So that is very, very misleading. Have a look at how far deep into this race. I can tell you one thing. Right now, Jamie McKnight would be sitting there. He would be top of the charts for positions gained since the start. That's only going to last another couple laps, but he will definitely be there. It's going to be up. I think it's going to be above the 30s for the first time.
Darren Crosby's had a massive moment coming into the lane. The race leader the last time by, the 66, he's had a huge moment in the lane. He nearly wiped out Jamie McKnight, so that's a huge moment. I was just talking him up that he's going to look pretty good going an extra lap, and unfortunately I've put the curse on him.
Yeah. Commentator's curse, Brady Boardman. Welcome to the commentating box. Welcome to the commentator's world. Welcome to putting the mockers on people. What's he done here? We're gonna get an opportunity to witness this. We did get some funny pit lane entries last week. Has he just gone in too deep and downshifted and the rear end's come around?
I think he might have got the grass from the view that I seen. It was very brief, but we might try and get an onboard or roof shot of the 66. And yeah, he's unfortunately still in the lane. He's letting heaps of cars fly by, and I'm pretty sure he got a wheel on the grass, and he might get a further penalty too. So yeah, unfortunately, Darren Crosby will lose a fair few positions out of that. Yeah, right front on the grass. Lucky didn't really get too much damage out of that. He got pretty lucky.
Brenton O'Brien's around, actually, at MG at this point in time as well. So something's happened to Brenton O'Brien on this lap, or at least there was a slow car at MG. I'm pretty sure it was Brenton O'Brien. So race control will have that one to have a look at. But John Latham, ladies and gentlemen, back to the race lead for a very short amount of time. He's going to have to pit here in... Ooh, it's going to go a fair way into this. It depends how long he wants to go on these tyres, because the longer he does go, the more of a tyre advantage he will have. But of course, the slower that's going to mean he will be through this stint. It's got clear air. I think he's going to empty the tank. I think the clear air just absolutely dominates. I think he's got to empty the tank here.
Yeah, certainly. We'll probably see him run to about lap 44, lap 45. Still been 9 or so laps. But the big thing I want to talk about is Chad Lewis. He was effectively third before that round of pit stops. He's now on corrected order. He's going to be 9th. So a massive loss for the 727 of Chad Lewis. And one guy that has gained a good advantage out of those pit stops is Dan Hall. He'll be corrected P3 on the road, but he has the fast charging Penn Latter not far behind him. So bonus for Dan Hall. And Jason Spriggs, he's made quite a few spots. He was on the back of the tail of this pack before the stop, so he's up to 6th now. So a few guys gaining spots and a few guys are losing. Chad Lewis 34.5 in the box. Seems a little bit more
seconds.
About 3 seconds longer than...
Here is the shortest in pit lane is Jason Spriggs.
4.3 seconds difference, but
yeah, that's huge. Absolutely huge. The time in pit lane's a little bit close together, so that says to me that Chad Lewis was a little bit more aggressive, perhaps on the pit lane and pit lane exit, getting back to that pit lane speed limiter. So perhaps he was a little bit at the time caught back up there, didn't lose the whole bucket of time in pit lane. Critically right now, Michael Talyancic has got control. He's got one hand on this thing. It's just about keeping it clean, and Latham's into the lane. I thought these two might have got the opportunity to duke it out once again, or for Latham to go long and potentially fuel save off of Talyancic and have Tally going long. But not to be the case. He will dive straight into the lane. 28.702, so we are seeing faster laps from this stint. Fuel saving games from Talyancic are over. Scott Campbell just going to about do the same. How far down the list does John Latham fall? That's what we're watching. He pit out of the race lead. Where is he going to return? Again, I don't want to say it again, but I mean, maybe I do. Maybe I do want to say it. Pit lane penalty, John Latham, please don't respect.
He's coming out the lane now. I'm trying to pick up back to the top
21st.
About 21st. So actually, it's a lot better than I was going to say about P30. So he's exceeded my expectations, and he'll have the freshest tyres out of everyone. He'll probably have the lowest fuel out of everyone as well. So maybe that top 15 might be on. Just might be on. He's about, I'd say, about 10 seconds off P15 roughly to Jeff Thomas. So I think he might be within a shout of top 15, but I reckon after the circumstances, the top 20 isn't really that bad either.
You take whatever you can get sometimes. You just will take whatever you can get. Right, ladies and gents, what are we going to keep our eyes on up and down the field at this point in time? Whoa, hang on. March 23 just received a post-race penalty. 23. That's not up in front. I think that's further down the field. Tim Nicol, I think it's the 23 car. And that will explain what happened to Brenton O'Brien just before he entered the pit lane, I think, or just after he entered the pit lane. So those two are still quite close together on the racetrack. To go now. Groups started to spread themselves out up and down the field. 3 cars battling at this point in time for for third place. So it'll be Spriggs, Ladder, and Hall. Spriggs on for one of his best finishes of the season, indeed, in a fair while. Tim Nichols actually off the road at this point in time on the run down the open lights into MG. Catch it nicely at MG.
So Dan Hall still leading this pack in P3. I'll just check in the biggest movers of this race, and I'm pretty sure Jamie McKnight has that wrapped up. He's started 32nd. He's up to P number 18. So look at that, on top once again, Jamie McKnight passing the most amount of cars, and it's become pretty standard for a V8 veteran split one that the 027 gains the most amount of spots in a race.
Yeah, but I like watching the drives. Like it's always interesting. I'm one of these guys that sometimes I just take qualifying. I actually really enjoy starting from the back end and just practicing overtaking. Because overtaking to me is, you've got to set it up and you've got to think about what you're doing. And even though you're the faster car, you're still going to get the job done clean at the end. From Jamie McKnight, he overtakes the most cars every single week. And I don't think I've ever heard him get called through to race control. And that says to me, there's a driver that A, has the respect of the drivers around him, and B, knows exactly how to execute a clean overtake, when to pull off the dive bomb, when to go deep, and how to over and under somebody. That's supreme racecraft from Jamie McKnight. If there was a few little staples on and a couple little penalties here and there, I'd go, yeah, look, I mean, he's doing it, he's getting aggressive, he's getting the elbows out, but it's never getting the elbows out from Jamie McKnight.
And I 100% agree. Oh, big moment. Third place in the race. Dan Hall has gone off the road at Southern Loop. We'll see what has happened. I'm just picking up now. He's run wide at turn 2, dropped off the road on the outside grass, and he's lost many positions. He's going to be back to about P10. So unfortunate mistake for Dan Hall. He's just run it wide, and big moment. Luckily not to get collected there by Latta and Spriggs. And I think might have just locked a brake or just ran it in too hard in the corner. And unfortunately, all that hard work getting to P3, he's now fallen back to P number 10. So unfortunately, Dan Hall is podium may go begging for him tonight here at Phillip Island. Yeah, just gone a little bit too hot there, Scott, and pretty good save in the end. It could have been a lot worse, but man, oh man, he really did not need that in such an intense battle for third place.
I'll tell you what's so easy to do as well, so easy. If you can tell me a driver who has not done that around here at some point, I'll show you a light, because I'm pretty sure everyone has done that. Particularly in cold time. Very, very easy to do, particularly when you're trying to hunt down Ken Latta. Indeed. That spot has changed for P number 3 as well for Dan Hall, so losing that one out. Jason Spriggs, though, an opportunity beckons for him. Is this the night he gets himself finally onto the podium in Kumho Tyres V8 Vets? It's high penny. It's been a while since we've seen one of these boys up on the podium. I think Visma was the last one in the middle of last season. So Scotty Gamble's, no, not Scotty Gamble's friends. I don't know.
Damien Cairns friends, maybe, Scott?
I don't know Damien Cairns friends. Jason Spriggs, yeah. We'll see what they're able to do here tonight, and whether or not Spriggs will be drinking champagne at the end of things. Third place champagne tastes the same as first place champagne.
I would think so. I think it's all the same.
They just give you a small bottle. That's the main thing. It's the champagne.
It's all a battle pack here forming here, Scott, through from about 5th place Matt Vanderkraan, Visma, Frank Lewis, and then Short Hall and Dan Hall, 2 Halls running out the top 10. So still a nice close battle pack from P5 to P10. So not much in between these drivers, and we've said it all night. One little mistake from these drivers and it will cost you dearly, just like Dan Hall. That one little mistake from 3rd to 10th. That's just how close these guys are and how close the racing is tonight.
I'm really keen to see if Matt Vanderkraan late on in this run kind of attach himself to the wheel number of Jason Spriggs. There's an opportunity lurking in the water, and I'm curious as well. Ken Ladder's been released, so this is an opportunity whether or not that dirty air for Ken Ladder was holding him up, whether or not he can go and chase down Scott Gamble. It's wide open fields up at the front end of the field, and the driver cutting his way back through the pack. At this point in time, keep our eyes out for John Layton. At this point in time, has managed to get his way back up to 19th at last time of asking. He's now chasing down Jamie McKnight and is still making headway. Took 0.8 of a second out of Jamie McKnight on that last lap. 28.9. Absolutely flying, ladies and gentlemen, as John Wayne. So still an opportunity to crawl his way back up onto a few drivers. He's got a battle pack from 18 to 16 just ahead of him, and the one that we're watching at the moment is led by Michael Stewart, that's the one. M. Stewart. I knew it was an M. Stewart.
That last lap, Latham was actually half a second quicker than Michael Taliancic, so that just shows how much pace there is on board for 24. A little bit lower fuel, fresher tyres, and he's certainly on the charge. And Ken Latta just calling over race control. I think it was just, it was thanking the lap car of, it was Scotty Van Loon was letting in by, so in lap traffic a little bit the leaders, so it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. Troy Sipple as well, running wide at turn number 2 to let all the leaders by. And on board, Zoom, once again, Michael Schroeder in the P26. He's up 10 spots, so decent running tonight for the 263 machine.
He's had a reasonable race. Can't complain from that one for Michael Schroeder. And he's still in and around a whole huge battle pack of these guys. Matty Parker's tail on the tail end of this one. So keep your eyes further in the rear view mirror. That's not a bad battle pack to halfway keep your eyes on. But yeah, I was keeping my eyes on Troy Sipple and Scotty Van Loon as well, both doing a phenomenal job. Tim Nicol gets a little bit of struggle streak here tonight for the driver of the 23. He's been involved in a couple of different incidents. He's been off track a number of different times. Unfortunately for him, that's just been his night. And he will look on towards next week for Tim Nicol. But sometimes you just got to sit down and just say, look, yeah, it's a lot of mistakes that come from this. It's the response that's a critical one. I'm enjoying watching this onboard from Michael Stewart. Look at the amount of work going on in that cockpit, and look at the way that he's responding. Look at he does the lean. Do you do the lean, Brady? Are you a leaner? You're going to lean through the turn, surely.
I probably do. I just probably don't think of it or notice that I do. But I'm sure if you put a camera on me, I think I probably would for sure, especially racing dirt racing that I mainly do. The car is pretty agile, so yeah, I probably would be going left and right all night long, and that's for sure.
Oh, I do it as soon as you get me going. And the more intense the battle is in the oval racing, the more it leads. So that's how you can tell whether or not I am focused up. In the meantime, up and down the field, Springs is starting to fall a little bit off of the rear bumper of Ken Latta, so he'll start to fall back to the clutches of Matt Van der Kraan, maybe. Van der Kraan's got an issue here with Visma, so Visma's quite pacey at the moment. We'll see whether or not he can get right in there. Check Friend. Craig Friend is doing a phenomenal drive at the moment in the 696 machine. Not been a great season for Craig Friend so far. Looking to really turn on a drive tonight to push him up that list. Remember, Dave Kirby, last season as well, was one of the critical things I think that doesn't get touched on enough, Brady Willoughby, was consistency. How many times did we see Dave Kirby in the top 5? How many times?
Quite a few from memory.
I think it was only twice, 2 or 3 times out of all the races last season. Finished second in points. Finished second in points due to the consistency. The amount of times he spent the top 10 versus the amount of times he didn't finish, that was the true drive from Dave Kirby. It was consistency. I think we started to see a few drivers turn that on. Matty Parker's had a little bit of a rough night, but he's normally one of the more consistent drivers, and the other one I've got my eye on has been Van der Kraan. Scott Campbell as well. I think we're seeing the best again. We talked to him a couple of weeks ago about what last season got him real fired up. He was not happy about last season. He was getting aggressive. He was getting the elbows out. He was rubbing drivers, and I think that just lit a bit of a fire underneath him. I don't know about you, Brady, but when the red mist descends, and that's what it did for Scotty Campbell last season, you become a different person, and you can't really control who that person is sometimes. And Scott said, "This isn't me. I'm not having fun. I want to change something." And this is a completely different driver.
I totally agree with you. I think we've seen a more calculated Scott Campbell throughout the first couple of weeks. Unfortunately, got that small penalty. It wasn't a small penalty, but just a small mistake on that pit entry at Zandvoort. They cost him pretty well the win last week, and then we've seen him in Magny-Gore was pretty well dominant throughout that race. And tonight he's been right in contention. Unfortunately, Tally's probably had just a bit more outright pace than him, but he's well clear of 10 ladder in behind. So, like you said, he's been consistent. If he finishes here right now, he'll have a win in a second, and then wherever he ended up last week, I think he was in the 20s, still elite, just in the 10s. So,
just in the 10. He was running around 10th place. Yeah.
So, like you said, still consistent 3 top 10s in a field of 40 cars. You know, that's consistent as, and pretty sure Talientrich hasn't. This is his first race of the season as well. So, not sure how many drop rounds these drivers get throughout the series. If it's 1 or 2, I'm not sure, but he'll certainly be on top of the points, I would assume, after tonight. And like I said about Kirby last season, he was consistent. If he wasn't up the front, he was always in the top 10 and 15, top 15 at worst. So the consistency over a 10-round season that V8 Veterans is certainly pays off.
Yeah, and that's what it's really, really about at the moment. John Latham is trying to be Mr. Consistency at this point in time. Has just overtaken Jamie McKnight. Who's that off track? That's Rod Hollis. I know that car. He is not having another driver having a difficult night. He's actually having internet connection issues, ladies and gents, right throughout. So that's been the real concern for him. It looks to have resolved itself at this point in time, but now he's found himself off track. Oh, that's contact. Has he got a nudge here?
Oh, I think he's dropped internet connection at the very worst time, and I really think that looked like McCune in behind really had nowhere to go. So if that's being looked at by race control, like what do you do there if you're Scott McCune? You're in behind that close to someone, and Hollis just literally drops out. He disappears. So yeah, I really think that'll just be. We'll go on board with Scott McCune on the Logitech G replay, and because I'm right behind him. Never was gonna. Yeah, and it's. Looks like Hollis braked a little bit at the top of Lukey Heights as well, which didn't help the situation, I don't think. And then, obviously, him dropping out made the contact considerably worse. So, I don't think McCune will get any sort of penalty for a thing that's just a bit of hard luck there for Rod Hollis.
Yeah, and that's actually a really interesting point. So, the guys that are watching along at home, and the critical thing for me is. This isn't something. You've got your issues, right? You've got your mechanical issues. You've got your engine failures, your bearing failures, your weld failure. You name it. It can go wrong in real life. You don't have that on a simulation. It's all damage based. There's not a chance modifier sitting in the background to lost away a connection with a chance modifier. Just a failure within the car, and that always spices things up. Very quickly led to a quick restart of no, we can't have that, and moving on with it. Not a thing in iRacing, but we can have hardware failures, wall failures, monitor failures, power outages, as we've even had to our broadcast as well. These are the mechanical failures in iRacing, and another one of them is internet connection. Sometimes with the internet gods around Australia, they have not received their sacrifice, and they are not going to so they will just drop that internet connection at the most inopportune time. And that equates up to a little bit of some of those failures back from an iRacing perspective. But yeah, sometimes it's just difficult to deal with moving around the drivers when the driver blinks out like that radio, particularly when they do it open. That is impossible to do with the drivers.
Don't get me started on blinking cars on dirt ovals. It's literally the worst thing imaginable, especially when you're on a short quarter-mile track and there's literally no room between cars and one of them's dropping in and out and you can't see them. It's literally the worst thing in the world, and probably the number one hate of all dirt drivers on the iRacing servers. So I definitely feel for Scotty McCune there. Yeah, nothing he could do there, and it looks like Rod Hollis has pulled the car in and retired from the race as well. So maybe it's a little bit of damage there, and maybe with his internet connection, thought he might just play it safe and pull it in as Talientrich. He comes to start lap 49, and we'll have 9 laps to go this time by.
Yep, so starting to get the run home. I think this is interesting. It's probably an opportunity where I think they're looking backwards from the rear wing of Matt Vanderkraan at the moment at the chasing ahead of Hornets, and it's actually Craig Friends. We've got cars in the rear view, cars forward of him as well. It's a great opportunity to take a ride on board for a lap of Phillip Island, what it looks like in the simulated world of iRacing. At the moment looking through the rear wing, now looking through the windscreen, and it's the dips and rises. It's quite critical around Phillip Island to get them right, to know where to balance the car, Brady. And realistically, if this was a flat track, this thing would be really, really easy to get around. But that's not the nature of the island.
No, the undulation really makes the track what it is. There's so much, especially obviously Lukey Heights and MG. That's the number one corner if we talk undulation around this 12-turn circuit. So it's a personal favourite of mine. I always enjoy racing here, and this track always produces good racing no matter what car you're in. You can be in a GT car, a supercar, an underpowered open wheel car. Just anything really puts on good racing, because the draft always plays a factor on this track as well in turn one. And like I said, one of the best tracks in Australia and the world, and always produces really good racing. And we've seen some really good and clean, hard racing tonight. So it's been really good to call here tonight with you, Scott.
Yeah, I was going to say open wheel racing as well. I really, really want to see. Look, Melbourne Albert Park does a great job. Let's head a few hundred kilometres away from Melbourne and let's bring it to Phillip Island, because I think this is one of those circuits that would really have an opportunity to make F1 something special. The ability for overtakes to be made at most corners throughout the lap. Most of your corners as well, not huge high downforce corners. They're not in the vein of you would have to run a ton of wing, and that tends to lead in Formula 1 to a little bit closer racing DRS zones. There's plenty of opportunities, like a few of them in and around as well. It's a technical circuit. Hang on, something's happening. That battle back on screen is happening at this point in time. I think that's David Kirby around the outside, who's just going to lose a spot. Travis Hunt has just got down the inside. No, Travis Hunt was already ahead of this battle pack. It's now Dave Kirby still trying to hang on to this one, but Chris Miller resurgent late onto the piece, and Jeff Thomas is right in there as well. Hang on, here comes Kirby around the outside as well. He's trying to look to get aggressive, and Visma's gotten past Matt Vanderkran for 5th place at this point in time, so he's going to try and set his sights on Jason Spriggs, but in the meantime, it's Kirby still hanging on from Miller, and it looks like Miller's got a little bit of pace to burn late on.
Kirby was actually in front at the line over Travis Hunt by less than a tenth of a second. Travis Hunt must have got the move done at turn 1 and completed it successfully, and now Chris Miller, he's up 7 spots. He's now right on the back of the 307 of Kirby, and like he touched on, Anthony Visma, he did get the job done on Matt Vanderkran, who seems to be struggling just a little bit. He's now in the clutches of Craig Friend.
I tell you what, catching this group at half a second a lap, and is only a couple laps away from getting in touch with them. There he is, the 24 machine. He's going to buy into this battle pack really late on in the piece, and he will get the elbows out when he gets there, because these guys are squabbling. The more they squabble, the more they come back to John Latham, and Greg Sharp through his rearview mirror as well. Latham will move up to 16 at the end of that lap. He got past Greg Sharp on that lap. The next car is Damien Cairns, and Damien Cairns is just about, indeed, is on the tail end of the battle pack ahead. So Latham with a head of steam. We said 15th might be out of the question. Latham trying to prove us wrong.
Already up to 16th for Latham, so very impressive recovery.
Have a look at the lap time difference. Last lap, 31.2, 29.5. The squabbling up ahead. Latham is coming.
He is on an absolute charge, John Latham, and the more these guys battle, he'll be licking his lips, trying to get onto the back of this battle of Damien Cairns, Jeff Thomas, Chris Miller, David Kirby. Travis Hunt's pulled away from that pack, so he looks pretty safe in P11 at the moment, but those next 4 cars, they'll come in the clutches of John Latham very, very shortly. This time by, we'll have 6 laps to go, and John Latham is closing in mega race.
I think he's there. Yeah, he's in the draft. He's in the draft. He's just bought into the draft. So this is John Latham coming for these guys. They're going to have to look forwards. They're looking for the battles, but they're now also looking rearwards, because one of the fastest cars on the track, bar Taliancic, is right there. And John Latham is in that tow, and he is going to be here in just a moment. I get the feeling this is going to come down to turn number 4, Miller Corner, what I like to refer to as Honda after the MotoGP series. I think he's going to be right there and in with a sniff.
He really is. He's got so much pace. But that last one by, again, 29.3 for Latham and a 30.2 for Cam. So still 9 tenths he took out of Damien Cairns in the pack that last time by. So I reckon probably the next lap, at the end of this lap, he might have a chance at Damien Cairns into turn 1. He's not far off right now, Scott.
Yeah, he is right there, and you can see these guys as well. Cairns got balked a little bit by Jeff Thomas in the braking zone. They were attempting to fight each other, which means that John Latham's here. Now, the thing for John Latham is he's running out of time to get further down the field, and he's got the pace to do so he doesn't want to squabble with these guys. And the other thing, if I'm Damien Cairns, I'm letting him go. You know why? He'll overtake them. He'll overtake these guys, and he's going to create holes for me to slip through.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be much point fighting him. He's obviously got a big turn of pain, so obviously every position counts. These guys are racers at heart. They want to battle for every position, but when you see someone like Latham have that much pace, you really got to think about it. And I think Latham might even get the move done if he can get a good enough run. He's got turn number 12. He's pretty close. He might have a dip at turn 1.
Yeah, so here comes John Latham, Damien Cairns, the car ahead. This is 15. This is where we said that he was going to get back to at race end, and John Latham proving us wrong. Yet again, the run down to turn number 1. He's looking for the overlap, looking for any hole that he can possibly open up on the run down to Southern Loop. He's at the rear bumper now of Damien Cairns. There's a 5-car battle pack right in front of him, and there's opportunity on the table for the 24.
Looks like Travis Hunt as well. I said he cleared out of this pack and he's dropped back into the clutches of David Kirby. So,
well, here we go! Here we go to the outside from John Latham. Look how deep he got down in there. Greg Sharp's going to buy into the background of this one. Gets it all crossed up on exit. So now he's starting to work those rear tyres really hard. The cars ahead of him, they've all had twitches in the last lap. Every single car in this train is struggling for grip. Late on in the race, the fuel loads, they're getting lighter, and there's going to only be 4 more laps to go at the conclusion of this one.
The only downside to Latham closing this gap right up, he might have used all that's left of his tyres, so when he tries to pull the move off at one of the slower corners, he might not just have the traction to get the move done. He obviously has fresher, newer tyres than everyone else in the field, but he might have burned them up to get into him.
Mate, he just had a big wiggle coming off of turn number 11 before into the final corner. He's still close enough, but he's hit the dirty air. He's hit a wall of air, 5 cars long, and up at the head of this pack, they're going to go side by side down into turn number 1. Dave Kirby and Travis Hunt are side by side on the run through. Big doing corner, they managed to settle themselves down in. I think Kirby just made contact with the right rear corner of Travis Hunt's car. So now they're all checked up. They're all squabbling all over each other. Latham gets a wiggle on out of the Southern Loop. Now the run down to Miller Corner. Who's got it through Stoner Corner? It's going to be Kirby that's going to try and get down the inside and go. Here's spot back. Then 3 wide. 3 wide into Miller. Jeff Thomas eclipses the lot of them. He gets a 2-for-1 deal on Thursday nights. And I can't remember any pizza place that's given us that good a value in a long time.
Wow, what a move. Miller re-overtakes Jeff Thomas. That was absolutely incredible. 3 wide into Miller Corner. Jeff Thomas with the advantage. He didn't quite get the exit he wanted. Chris Miller pounced at him, and Kirby, he's lost 2 spots out of that. So this is bringing John Latham. He got the move done with Damien Cairns, and he's looking for another one on Kirby.
Look at Kirby. Kirby's getting defensive because now he realizes I can't slip further back into this one. Cairns is in the rear view for John Latham. Now all of a sudden up at the head of this thing, Travis Hunt is starting to check out yet again. Now it's Kirby and Thomas. They've rubbed. They went 3 wide into Miller in the last lap. Who is going to have the run? And all of a sudden Thomas just about puts a wheel in the dirt out of the last corner. That's how important the drive is. And now Latham is crawling all over Kirby, and Kirby's got the elbows up.
It looks like Kirby just struggling a little bit at the end of this race, and John Latham's really got some pace to burn, so look for a move at Miller Corner once again. But man, that last time by Miller Corner, that was absolutely incredible. That was nearly iRacing top 10 worthy, how good that was, and the call by you, Scott, once again was absolutely amazing. And there's some fantastic racing. Once again, the V8 veterans, they always seem to turn it up.
Here we go. Here we go from Latham. He's trying to get down there. It's a deep lunge. It's a very deep lunge. He pulls it up. Kirby made a move late onto the braking zone. Race Control will probably want to have another look at that. I think Kirby had a slight wobble, and that's why he was willing to yield it, because he moved in the braking zone. And I think he knows that he might just be at fault on that one.
Yeah, a little bit of aggressive driving the braking zone. I just had a re-look at it, Scott, and he definitely did move to the right a little bit under brakes, so I don't think he's going to call that in, or I don't think they should do anything about that. Just let the guys race on. Latham, I think, was going to get the job done anyway, so he got that move. He's up to 14th now, and he's got 2 laps to go to try and search for Jeff Thomas and Chris Miller just up in front, and Travis Hunt's not far away either, so all these guys are battling really hard, but out in front it's pretty pedestrian at the moment. Italian entrance, he has about a 13-second gap to Scott Gamble, and then Ken Latta pretty comfortable in third, and then big gap to Jason Spriggs, and another decent gap to Anthony Visma. So the top 5 pretty all spaced out at the moment, but the battle on screen we've been following the last couple of laps has been absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I've just had a look at the timing sheets, and Matt Van der Kraan has started closing on Visma again. He's dropped in a fair bit just to start off with Craig Friends coming back at him. At the meantime, Jeff Thomas is starting to crawl all over that rear bumper of Chris Miller yet again. Kirby is falling off the cliff. His tyre deck is just falling away. He's got nothing left. He's burned it all up. He's back. He's going to be food there for Damien Cairns and Greg Sharp in a few moments. And here comes Latham once again. He's missed the opportunity here at Miller Corner. There's only 1.5 laps left to run. And indeed, if you're Michael Taliancic, you're coming out of the last corner to get the white flag. There will be 1 more lap left to go for the 21, the one-handed bandit from last season, and your defending champion.
Latham we just picked up on. He's right on the back of Jeff Thomas. He might try at MG at the bottom of the hill, try and get him moved on if he's close enough, which he is. He's right on the rear bumper. Thomas goes defensive. Very aggressive move from Latham. Down this side, there is contact. There is contact. Jeff Thomas off the road. I think Latham was up far enough, but that's going to be a bit of a controversial call post-race.
Yeah, I think there's going to have to be another move for that one. The problem is, if he's moved over on him and there was overlap, I think it's Jeff Thomas is going to be okay if there's no overlap. He left him just the barest of... No, he wasn't quite far enough up. Race Control will have another look at that one for sure. But in the meantime, John Latham's going to do all that he possibly can. He's got the elbows out. He's looking for Chris Miller. Chris Miller's now a second ahead. Such was the time loss after trying to make that move. In the meantime, where's our race leader? He's on the run over Lukey Heights for the final time tonight. We haven't talked about him. Such has been the dominance of Michael Taliancic. He's run a great race here. He ran the same thing last season, 2 in a row. From the island, it's going to be for Taliancic. There's one more kink in it. Light it up, son, if you've got the opportunity to. Enjoy yourself because he's got a 12-second margin. One of the biggest in V8 Veterans history. Biggest in the recent future for these guys. Scott Gamble. Well, if you put a 12 to 13-second margin over Scott Gamble, you will know about it. Because that is not something that happens very, very often. Ken Latta going to come home in 3rd place, although we're going to have to sit around and watch a very long time for that one to happen. In the meantime, Latham will not get back to Chris Miller. He's going to finish 13th as it stands with a review to come and a question mark over that one. I've had another look at it, Brady, and I know I'm voting. I think that one was Jeff Thomas's. I don't think Latham got far enough up.
I had another look as well, Scott, and it looks like Jeff Thomas actually lost the rear a little bit just before contact was made. So didn't look like any netcode was involved in him losing the rear. I think he lost the rear on his own, and then the contact was made. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be race car. I think it's pretty 50-50 whether how that's going to go. But impressive for Taliancic. Pretty comprehensive win, 13.1 seconds. And if you do that over Scott Gamble, you're obviously doing something right, and puts out a big statement in his first race of the season. And Ken Latta, impressive result, P3. Jason Spriggs in the top 5. I think that's his first top 5 of the season too. And Jamie United, he finished P17 from 32, so impressive result. But I think about John Latham, he came from about, I think he was 39th or 38th when he took that pit stop. So really, he's going to be commended as well for getting back to P13 and passing as many cars as he did from that earlier sort of blunder, not pitting under that first safety car.
I say Jeff Thomas finishes in 19th after that contact. So, yeah, look, I mean, obviously disappointing late on in the piece for Jeff Thomas, but how good was the battle pack? And yet again, the thing that always gets me, Brady, is it's not the front guys that are necessarily. It's always going to be a fight for a race win. You know, it's great to watch on the broadcast, but just give me cars side by side, cars door to door, cars that are even on pace. And I think the V8 Veterans is one of the best leagues I've seen deliver in that category in a very, very long time. Ladies and gentlemen, your results from the Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans 250 from Phillip Island. Michael Taliancic, race winner by 13.1 seconds in the end over Scott Gamble. Ken Latta, 19 seconds back of our race win, covers our top three. Jason Spriggs, the first of the Taipan Esports cars, home in front of his teammate in Anthony Visma, who finally manages to stitch a race together. Matt van der Kraan had an opportunity, again, starting out of that second row. He's been pacey in qualifying, needs to just find a couple more inches in that race, and he'll be on for a podium. Craig Friend, Chad Lewis, Dan Horn, Stewie Hall, round out your top 10.
Travis Hunt, nice drive for him tonight on the JWM Motorsports machine. He'll finish P11 ahead of that very impressive battle pack that we stayed on for the last couple laps of the race. Certainly some fantastic racing from those guys. The 666 of Chris Miller, after a really good run last week, he'll finish 12th. John Latham, that big recovery drive, he'll finish 13th. David Kirby, we talked about missing consistency from last season, he'll finish 14th. Damien Cairns in 15th. Greg Sharp, he was amongst a lot of battles tonight. He finished 16th. Jay Beckby Knight, the hard charger of the evening, he finished 17th. Darren Crosby finished 18th. Jeff Thomas, unfortunately, after that late contact, he'll finish 19th. And Stephen Kennedy in the in the 20 machine, he'll run out the top 20.
Yeah, and then we are going to throw out another 10 further back for Michael Dumbrell, Peter van der Kraan, 22nd. Michael Stewart also got his elbows out in a couple moments through that race. Stephen Gretsch actually a good drive to get himself up into 24th. Michael Schroeder and Matty Parker. Parker had pace, but again managed to find himself by the wayside. Stephen Banks, Hallel Scissor. Scott McHugh, a great recovery effort to get back inside the top 30. And Brenton O'Brien is going to finish 30th. Throw it over the page, and we'll finish ourselves out with Dean Flavell. Matt Skulls, unfortunately, down in 32nd, the last car on the lead lap. Robert Crisdale, Chad Vigor, and Rick Vigor, Tim Nichols, Scotty Van Loon, Troy Sipple, Paul Burns, and Rod Hollis. 40 cars finishing less than 12 laps off the lead. Indeed, nearly the top, so it's top 38, or one lap down or better. And I think that's just about it in terms of our post-race standings. And indeed, we're going to talk to our post-race team here in just a few moments. We're going to kick it off with third place tonight in the 269 machine. It's going to be Mr. Ken Latta. And Ken, that one was a difficult one. Dan Hall obviously got the jumps on you in pit lane. The pit stop from you was also quite well run. But when that pit lane window opened with the safety car early on, did you know you were in with the hump?
Yeah, I knew I was there or thereabout, because obviously the leader, he didn't pit at the safety car. And I put in as much fuel as I could. I put in more than I thought, and I still had to save.
So was that for the last stop?
It was.
You're talking about? Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
so obviously pace dying off in the dying stages for a number of drivers there. Dan Hall, obviously, he was ahead of you there for a good chunk of the night there, and then just a little bit of a mistake. We saw that happen at Southern Loop. I mean, you got a feel for the guy. You were racing him. It felt like it was going to go down the line, particularly obviously with the drafts. Coming from Dan probably would have made your life a little bit easier, push on a little bit late on in the piece. But hey, Southern Loop, we've all done it.
Oh, I think everyone's done it there, haven't we? You know, it's an easy one to break yourself and just strip wide. Him being in front definitely helps with the fuel situation, but yeah, bad luck to him, unfortunately.
Mate, in terms of things, starting to put a run of finishes together, starting to feel a lot more comfortable in the car. I mean, back in the top 5, 2 weeks in a row, it's starting to come together. This has been the difficulty of last season. It was splash in the pan style finishes. We saw it on the podium a couple of times, but now this season, early on, all the wheels are starting to turn.
Yeah, well, you know, I suppose, you know, you got to try and sort of think about the percentages of moves, whether it's worth it. And I think I'm trying to have a bit of different attitude this particular season and just try and get results and try not to wreck the race, you know, because I could have easily probably won the championship last season, but I just one mistake after another sort of took that away from me, didn't it?
Look, that's racing sometimes. I mean, we actually spoke to Scott Gamble about those sorts of notes a few weeks ago, and he said, it took a lot out of me, and it was a personal adjustment that I sort of had to make. Is there any adjustment so far this season from yourself? Has it been, look, I'm probably not going to push quite as hard. I'm going to hold myself back just those few extra tenths and just search for those consistent results?
Exactly right. I think that's where it is. I mean, it's all good and well. If I was 20 years younger, and but I'm not. So I'm just got to do the best I can with what I got. And I think the night for third wasn't too bad.
It's Phillip Island. It's 250 kilometers an hour. It's heavy on tires. We saw. I don't think there was a car in this field that we sort of went down and through and had a look at that wasn't struggling with rear tires throughout the run. How was your run? Do you think you had the tires? Do you think you had pace late on in that stint if you needed to find something?
The second stint, when I opened up that first came out, and then went a little bit wide. I think it was on the third corner or whatever it was, and then come together with Chad. I can't even remember. And I struggled for the rear tyres that whole stint. So the car just wanted to loop around, coming onto the start-finish straight, and then also on that fast right-hander in the middle, I wanted to do the same thing. It was quite difficult.
And finally, mate, another strong performance here for you. Have you got another one in the tank for next week? How are you feeling about the next race out?
Where are we going?
Yeah, I was just looking for the same thing. Long Beach is actually going to be the next round in these things. So, Concrete Canyon, walls up and close and in your face. How are you feeling about going toe-to-toe with these guys around Long Beach?
Yeah, why not? It's all good and fun. The guys at the front and most of the guys through the field they're pretty good to race with. So, just bring it on, eh?
Congratulations, mate, on the third. Who's the sponsors that make it possible for Synergy Sim Racing?
Well, I want to congrats Teleanchich and Scott on their results, and of course you guys for putting an awesome broadcast together. All the guys at SSR, to make it possible to be in events like this, and I'd like to thank Wave Runner Performance Centre, Smith & Son Renovation, Smith & Son, DGT Customs, Australian Laminating Company, DM Sim Photography, JK Signs, Nolan, Aftershock PC, West End Mazda, and 2AG Finance. Thanks.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Driver the 269, the Mustang, in third place tonight for Synergy Sim Racing. Ken Latta, thank you very much, Ken, for your time. Have a great night, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Moving right along, we'll jump into Scott Gamble out of P2, and a little bit uncharacteristic, I would say, that drive. Like we just said to Ken that obviously there's been a little bit of holding yourself back just that little bit, keeping the elbows inside, but some contact made, and just after that safety car restart, boy, she got aggressive there.
Yeah, hang on, mate. Yeah, Chad and Ken come together, and yeah, they had a little bit of contact. I think, not sure what happened. Maybe Ken turned down on Chad, and yeah, he had to redress it. So, yeah.
Mate, it's always tough racing when we go to the island, and I think tonight the critical thing from everyone was we saw the cars wiggling everywhere. We saw the struggle with the rear tyres. I think we're actually seeing it on. That's perfect timing. On screen at the moment, a big old rear slide coming out of turn number 4 there, mate. So what was the secret to success in managing rear tyres tonight?
It's funny you mention that because, yeah, the struggle was real with this set. I didn't gel with it, but, it is what it is, and we had to get on with it. But, yeah, it was one of those things you did have to try and manage the tyres, because if you, you cook them, like I did a little bit in the first stint, and it makes it really, really difficult to get them back, and you'd start dropping tons of time. So it was a difficult set to drive, but that's part of the challenge, I guess, and look forward to what comes up next week with the set.
Next week out, we're actually heading back to street courses, and probably one of the most interesting ones, because I think it also allows for some of the best racing actually, is Long Beach. It's unique there. 40 cars trundling around Long Beach. We're not even going to mention the safety car percentages because we know it's above 100. But race awareness, race pace, and and what you try and do with the car, it's all very different to a lot of the other street circuits there. You've got opportunities to make the overtakes, but you've got to get up alongside early. You've got to plan those overtakes. You've got to be strategic about them and when to back out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I remember I'd done some practice maybe a season or two ago for Long Beach, but I haven't driven a race at Long Beach for over 3 years. So I'm looking forward. It's going to be a good challenge, and yeah, I don't mind the street circuits. It's millimeter errors, and yeah, it should be good fun.
In terms of things, mate, we actually mentioned a couple times tonight. This is the Scott Gamble we didn't see last season. We obviously talked about the mindset and everything. You know, it's been a switch around in mentality, in the psychology, in the approach dynamic, and the way you do your practice, the way that you prepare for a race. Has the enjoyment of racing actually really come back, first and foremost? Because I think that's obviously quite critical to anyone who's going to be doing this for an extended period of time. And then secondly, do you think the proof is in the pudding here, or do you think we're not quite there yet? There's still a couple of adjustments, maybe a little bit too passive. Are you going to get the elbows out a little bit more than this, or is this about where we sit?
Yeah, it's interesting because I do enjoy racing. I actually enjoy having doing the practice with the guys in the official practice servers, and yeah, so it's always good fun and enjoy the chats with them. But I mean, it's early stages of the season, so to get a second position, get a good bank of points in there, you know, we've got a long way to go, and try and keep a couple of drop rounds up our sleeve, and then see where we're standing, you know, past the halfway mark, and see if we can have a shot at it. There's a lot of good drivers like John. He's driving really well. If he got rid of his errors, he'd be good. And Tally, he's driving fantastic, and Ladder's strong as well. So there's a lot of there's a lot still yet to play out in this championship, and it's a long season.
Mate, another phenomenal drive here from Phillip Island here tonight. We'll see you next week out from Long Beach. But first and foremost, two of the sponsors that make it possible for Scott Gamble and the Evolution Racing team.
Yeah, big shout out to Logitech G. You know, we're using their direct drive wheel and pedals, and yeah, it does the job for us. So we're really happy with that. And a shout out, actually, I do have to say shout out to all the drivers who donated the Silverstone race from last season to Soldier On. That went through. The admin has got a receipt for that. So yeah, really big congratulations to the all the drivers at V8 Veterans to donate that through. That was awesome. To the sponsors of the league, you know, thank you very much, and to you guys, thank you very much, and drivers, thanks. You guys are what make it, and it's an enjoyable place to race.
Mate, you're starting to make me want to think I'm a little bit older, so I can actually get out there on track and mix it up with you guys. Thank you very much for the run again tonight, Scotty. It's been a pleasure talking to you as usual.
Thank you. See ya.
And finally, it's been a while since we've talked to Michael Taliancic. In fact, it's the first time that we'll actually speak to him as not only defending champion, but also as last season's champion, the one-handed bandit himself, driver of the 21. I always love seeing the green and black out in front and turning consistent laps. Tonight, you just had control of that thing from lights out to flag.
Yeah, I've put in quite a bit more practice than I normally do for these races. Got a few races coming up that I have to be well prepared for, so came in quite fast. I was quite disappointed to not get a pole, because I've never got a pole in this series yet, and I thought I was going to have it tonight, but yeah, John got me again, so good work to him. He was actually quite fast tonight.
Mate, it was only actually 1,000th ahead of Scotty Gamble. It was actually that tight in qualifying, but it's pretty much the same anytime we come to an Australian track. Everyone has been and done laps around here so many times. It's so much easier to get practice in, and everyone feels a lot more comfortable. So when you look at those qualifying times, everyone's sort of sitting there and going, yeah, it was really tough tonight, wasn't it?
Oh, definitely. This is a nice track for me to get up to speed. Like, it doesn't take long, and I'm already at a quick pace. I always quite enjoy not having to work quite so hard to get my pace up, but with Scops this weekend, Logitech next week, I'm also running NZ Supercars and East Coast. I've got another 4 hosted series coming up at Phillip Island, so I've been putting in the work as well, so that really gave me a bit of an edge tonight, I think.
So we're actually talking about it prior to the race and whatnot as well. It's 2 races in a row from Phillip Island. have gone the way of the 21. Is there something about this place? Is it just where you feel the most comfortable? Because the performances both times we come here, last time it was a strategy race, this time it was a little bit of a strategy race, but that it felt like the call that just about every car made was the no-brainer call. What's the magic with Phillip Island for you?
I don't know what it is, but I've probably done like 10,000 laps here, so there might be a bit to play there. And some of the other tracks, like last week, I didn't even turn up. Round 1, I barely knew the track as well, and I only put in like an hour's practice, but yeah, I think it's just experience. If I put in a lot more effort, I could probably go a bit better other tracks as well, but like with last season, I was actually quite slow when we came here. It was just really fortunate that there was quite an advantage to the strategy call, whereas this season I was quite a bit faster. I'm back to 2 hands and feeling a lot stronger.
What I was going to ask is how's the adjustment back to 2 hands, but obviously it's settling in there quite well. Next week out, we're heading to Long Beach and back to more close quarters racing. It's got that allure to it, but critically, actually, I think the Grand Prix of Long Beach is actually on next weekend, so you'll be able to watch IMSA Series' IndyCar Series as Scott McLaughlin will be going toe-to-toe with a few guys, or actually that might even be this weekend. So there's a little bit on coming from Long Beach, but it's got this aura. There is just a mystique, a magic, and those walls, they just lure you in.
Oh, I love racing street circuits, so I'm hoping to be fast there, but with, like I said, I'm racing Tuesday and Wednesday at Phillip Island, and it's going to hamper my practice a little bit, so I'll probably have to try and get fast on Saturday. It's my only real opportunity this week, but I'll be looking forward to it. It's always a lot of fun going out there, battling hard and real close to the walls and whatnot. I think it should be a really good show.
And finally, congratulations to the 21 from Pursuit Sim Racing, who are the sponsors that make it possible for you and the team.
I'd like to thank VNM Simulation, MRP, Manum Racing Products in New Zealand, and Sideways Photography. Also a big shout out to you guys in the broadcast and all the guys behind race control and hosting the series.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Talanianchik, driver of the 21, and tonight's winner from the Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans 250 from the island. Congratulations, Michael. It's been a pleasure to chat to you again.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is just about it here from Phillip Island. Next week, we're going to be staring at that dolphin in the fountain. I wonder if we're going to find ourselves with a car that mounts the barriers and finds its way in there. Before we get there, though, it's the great opportunity to say thank you to all the sponsors that make it possible here at the Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans. We want to say a big shout out to Kumho Tyres as well, the title sponsor. Can't do it enough without them. Logitech G's for all their assistance with the replay. Parramatta Isuzu U. You're thinking of the new you, think Parramatta Isuzu. Player One Sim Gear to get you out there, get yourself sim racing. Partnership perhaps with Logitech G and Nova Sim Sports, the Sim Sports racing team that are all there and all looking for your latest in drivers. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been Scotty Rattlegun Rankin alongside of Brady Baldwin, Dan Yeaman behind the scenes on the cameras. Thank you from everyone here at SimSpeed. We'll see you next week from the streets of Long Beach.
World of Outlaws Dirt Racing is available now. Download your copy today.